Alright, everyone. A bit of an awkward one, especially at 3 a.m. in the morning right now, but I wanna take this opportunity and talk now a little bit about Season 2. Season 2 is about to conclude in our timeline. Like, a few days ago, they released, like, the Amelia Escape ending, whatever the fuck. So I wanna go ahead and basically give a bit of a review of the season, which, spoiler, this season has been a bit of a rough one. But I still just wanna put everything into perspective, just dribble my thoughts in there somewhere and, you know, have the package completed so we can start into Season 3. So yeah, let's talk Season 2. Season 2 has been very, very rough overall, which is very awkward. Hi. Anyways, so Season 2 was basically technically 3 updates. I say mostly 2, like the season start update and then the under surveillance event. I normally don't count a part 2 of an event as like a separate update. I know they have, it's just a formality thing. But also the, what was it called, like the flashback therapy thing. Let's talk about that first and foremost, maybe. I think it should be established again, and that goes for the entirety of Season 2. Season 2, unfortunately, was a byproduct of a Databreach hacking attack back in September, or whenever it was. Was it September? I don't remember. Basically, September, October, sometime last year. Red Barrels was like breached, and they had like a data breach, which is, by the way, hilarious, because as you see, this season is like called Project Breach, so it's hilarious how, you know, fourth wall breaking it basically is. But yeah, they had a data breach going on. I've talked about this a billion times before, and there are people on both sides. There are people that overly defend Red Barrels because of this, which is not good, because obviously you should point out if stuff isn't great and whatnot, regardless of the context. But also, it's worth acknowledging, and some people can't do that, that the data breach hurt the, you know, the flow of the game and the flow of the updates quite a lot. There are a lot of people out there still that think that the data breach was like an excuse to work less and whatever, which is fucking disgusting, by the way, because if you actually look into it, you know it's not as simple as, oh, they stole a bit of data. They stole like company data, they stole personal data from employees. Like, they also needed to make sure that the working environment is safe, etc, etc. It's not as simple as like, oh, they had some data stolen. No, please develop game update, free game update again. I said please, but these people would just say, yeah, just slave, go ahead, do update for my game that I paid once for, you know? Like, there are so many people out there, and it makes me pretty sad that some people have zero fucking concept about how serious this situation is. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the reason why Season 2 kinda was, Obviously, this will probably change in Season 3, alone for the fact that there's gonna be like new game modes and shit coming in Season 3. But let's talk about Season 2. I think let's start talking about the trials, maybe, because that's like the main drive force, right? So we had Pleasure Prosecutor, Reunite the Family, we had Deface Fathermans, Stash Contraband, Kidnap Mistress, and I guess the Amelia ending thing, which the Amelia ending is like its own separate thing, I guess. But let's talk a little bit about the trials first and foremost. Pleasure the Prosecutor is like newest contender for, if you like this trial, you're getting, nice, you're getting, you know that SpongeBob meme, like with Patrick thing, whatever, you know that fucking meme? Yeah, that's you liking Pleasure Prosecutor. It is that new Toy Factory. Back when Toy Factory came out, every single person hated it, and if you loved it, you were like a weirdo. Pleasure Prosecutor is like the next big thing, which is hilarious, because you wouldn't think of it, but Pervert and Pleasure have a lot of things in common, and I don't mean the waiting part, I mean the stuff, how the trial is structured, and so on and so forth. Because with Pleasure Prosecutor, they have a thing going where it's more of a one small objective to reach a place, similar to Pervert with the basement, and one big objective instead of having multiple big objectives that are, you know, a bit smaller big objectives. It's like a different thing whatsoever. So, to cut it to the chase, I've grown to love this trial a lot. Like right now, Pleasure Prosecutor, unironically, is like my favorite main trial right now, which is because of Witnesses, which, by the way, as a side note, I still do not understand the witness hate. If Red Barrels reuses any other objective, no one says a thing, but if they reuse Witnesses, like everyone cries out, because God forbid they reuse like the best mechanic in the game, in my opinion. Don't fight me. So yeah, that I don't understand. The map is awesome. The final encounter up until the Nerf last update was also awesome, because every single main trial has like a trivialized final encounter except Killer Snitch. Like this is the first time since Killer Snitch we had a final encounter that was actually tricky and difficult. So yeah, overall Pleasure Prosecutor is like insane in my opinion, like really really good. Now, you could make the argument that they reuse the objectives much, yada yada yada. I would rather have a main trial structured like this, with like a big objective on a big map, rather than doing multiple small steps. Like, have that be more frequent, because we had so many trials that follow that formula, like Poison Meds, Vindicate, Guilty, Cleanse Orphans, Grind the Bad Apples, Kill Snitch. Like, having a Deviant like Pervy that follows a different structure is like a welcoming breath of fresh air. Now, Reunite the Family is like alright. Deface, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I know it's a skill issue, but the targets are holy shit. They are like triggering a shit. Deface has the cool thing though with the exit rush mechanic built in, which I hope they will expand upon and use more. Stuff like that you instantly trigger exit rush, and then, you know, you still need to do an objective. That part of Deface was really, really cool and well executed, and yeah, we had Reunite, which was whatever. Like, Reunite is fun to play, but there's not much else to it. And then recently in the Under Surveillance event, they added Stash Contraband and Kidnap Mistress, which, in my opinion, are two very good maps. They have been very divisive. Like, I've heard so many people calling for nerfs for Stash, which the one thing I agree with is that on Standard right now, it seems like the map is bugged, so it spawns in more enemies than they're supposed to be. Like, it is almost as if when you play Standard, you still have increased threat. It's like really weird. But yeah, besides that, Stash is awesome. Like, I've grinded this a little bit for like speedruns and shit like that. I love this trial. I love this MK, I should say. It's not a main trial, but you get what I mean. It's so tense. I like that you have, you know, jammer and shit to use on a bunch of stuff. I do agree to some degree that maybe they should increase the speed of the mannequin doors slightly. But then again, that's what the security doors are for. That if you're impatient, you have to use the security doors. That's why they're there in the first place. Now, Kidnap Mistress has a beautiful map with the sewers. Like, it gives so many good Outlast 1 vibes, especially if you remember the sewer area in Mount Massive. That's awesome. The problem right now is that you can just YOLO the sex worker. Like, similar to Crush sex toys, you can just pick up the mannequin and you don't need to do the whole detective shit. So if you don't know basically how you're supposed to play this trial, there is a board thing, you can barely see it in the picture, where you see like weapon classifications, and with the frequencies you have to figure out the correct one. If you get the wrong one, you get like damaged massively. However, right now you can just pick out whatever mannequin you want and instantly drop it and you don't get damaged. So that's kind of like an iffy thing. So the whole detective thing doesn't even make sense right now. The only thing you need to know if you wanna play this meta is just do all the frequencies and only listen to the last frequency, which tells you the location. So yeah, this is right now a bit of an iffy one. Like, I would love to say, oh my god, Kidnap is amazing, but the whole YOLO thing kind of ruins it. Because the concept of having some sort of detective thing going on is stellar amazing. But right now with Kidnap, it's just, with the YOLO sex worker thing, it's like, ugh, whatever. And then we have the Amelia escape thing, which was a really, really cool mission. It was very, very nicely executed for the most part, from what I felt. Like, I've heard so many divisive things about it, but I liked it. It was a short, sweet thing for, you know, Outlast, especially single-player Outlast fans. Like a small story segment with a lot of tension build-up. You have your fight against Henrietta with, you know, your objective. Okay. You are stripped to your basics as well, which was a really cool twist, especially without night vision. And it was like a really, really cool story segment. I do not understand the people who, like, make the argument that it was too hyped up. I've seen that all over Reddit for some reason. Like, what are they supposed to do? Not talk about what's coming to the game at all? Like, come on. But yeah, escape ending, I enjoyed it. For me, it kind of showed, funnily enough, it did a lot for different people, but for me it showed a lot that the Trials formula, in my opinion, is superior, and I prefer it over the Outlast single player thing, in my opinion. Like, I've had a lot of people say, oh my god, there was only one enemy and there was nothing happening for a lot of the attention. Yeah, that's how literally Outlast 1 and shit worked. Like, if you replay Outlast 1, it works the exact same way. You don't have any enemies and anything going on for a while. Then you have an enemy segment, and then you have nothing going on for a while as well. Like, Outlast 1 and shit literally worked like that. So I don't know what these people are on about. I do agree that the difficulty might have been a bit iffy, that we had only basically introductory difficulty, but I understand it too, because it was only supposed to be a story beat, whatever, and they wanted to make it as accessible as possible. So I understand the thing very well. I'm surprised by the ending, that our reagent actually escapes, which, by the way, sorry for the spoilers, but I'm assuming you have seen it. If you're watching this review to, like, Season 2, I'm assuming you have already done, like, the ending, and you're just waiting for opinions. So I didn't put a spoiler thing at the beginning. I should have, maybe. But yeah, overall, the trial selection, even though there weren't that many, I think they were pretty solid. Divisive, but solid. I get that people do not like pleasure. I get that people don't like stash and whatever. And you can have your opinion here and there. In my opinion, they are solid. And that's the difficulty we should strive for, especially for psychosurgery. Every single time, it feels like when they bring out new trials and MKs, it almost feels they up the difficulty somewhat. And especially for higher difficulties, that's how it should be. Like, if, for example, something like Stash comes out right off the get-go, and you are easily able to just beat it without any effort, then it's kind of bad, right? Because you should, in order to master a new level coming out, you should need to put a little bit of time in to, like, figure out how this trial works, what the spawns are, and so on and so forth, in order to actually master it. And I feel a lot of the trials, not only in Season 2, but also in Season 1, when they brought, you know, Poison Catalyst, maybe a really good example, where it felt insane difficulty-wise when it came out. Now that's out for a bit, and we have learned how this trial works. It's, you know, a lot more manageable, and that's how it should be. And that's how Stash Contraband, by the way, is gonna be as well. Like, with time and with people's playtime, like, it doesn't mean that they will love it, but they will at least get better at it on average, whether it's like a normal play or an escalation. That being said, though, let's talk about events maybe next. Let's talk about the events. They had 2 events this season. I mean, they had the whole flashback therapy, which I think I'm gonna talk about this real quick, actually, before we talk about anything else. I know I said it was the necessary evil because of the data breach, and I can't wait for people who tell me in the comments that that's just an excuse, but flashback therapy wasn't great at all. There was the time where I did not play Trials at all whatsoever, especially since the flashback therapies like countdown or the community voted stick together or whatever, was the time where Pleasure Prosecutor wasn't in rotation for some reason. Like, that would have been the perfect time to have it in rotation, and that would have been interesting for videos and shit like that, just to play it and test it out how it plays. You couldn't play it in Escalation, yeah, but like actually having it grinded, like imagine if we had countdown event with Pleasure Prosecutor, it would have been so great. But on the events where it would have mattered, it wasn't in rotation whatsoever. It was in rotation when we had Toxic Shock, which Toxic Shock and Winterkill's back to back, yeah, but that was like very disappointing. Also, obviously the rewards not returning was also a bit of an L. I mean, they mentioned it before, it was a technical thing. And in case we get another, you know, flashback therapy, which I don't expect to happen anytime soon unless we have another emergency like this, then they will probably hopefully work this out, because obviously people want the rewards again. Like, there was no reason to play that. Literally, unless you're a new player and you have never played with these variators before and you wanna see what they look like. Other than that, there wasn't really a reason. Like, the trial selection wasn't awesome either, so yeah. But yeah, events. Winter Kills, under surveillance. Winter Kills is essentially the same thing as last year, which was kind of disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. I really hope, with spoiler, the Psychosis changes, that they're gonna go ahead and rework Toxic Shock at some point. That instead of taking damage, you take Psychosis damage. I think now that Psychosis is actually a threat now, it's kind of justified. But yeah, it was essentially the same. It added Frost Mines, which is a cute little gimmick, especially when you have it in Escalation. But for the most part, it was like same old, with the cosmetics returning and everything around it. It's the same hiding gimmick mechanic, so it was like, blah. It was fun to play, especially on Pleasure Prosecutor, on like the new map, but it was like, whatever. Under Surveillance, on the other hand, was like a complete new thing, and this is the thing that's also currently still going on while I make this video. Is essentially you have cameras on the map that can detect you and, you know, alert enemies to your presence and also damage you if you are in the radius for too long. I've made a video on that I find the security cameras right now quite underwhelming, in my opinion. Like, the whole enemies detect you and go to you doesn't seem to properly work in my experience. There's even a thing right now where I've tested this a few times, where if you stand right under a camera after being detected, they can't do a 90-degree straight down, so they will just lose you. So that's kind of awkward. And I mean, the damage is nice, like you have like 8 clicks until you die. I think that's justified, but the whole point of them to be a detection thing and then it should send enemies after you is just pretty underwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. I hope they revisit it. I made an entire video on that, but I hope they revisit the whole security camera thing. I think it needs some sort of help, maybe some reinforcements, maybe that enemies become hyper aware, similar to Downtown's capture points or whatever, but yeah, needs a little bit of help. With the event also came the Amelia ending. I've already talked about it. I think the setup to it was really nice. Probably the best part of this season was the whole lore thing, especially since people that previously didn't give two shits about the lore actually went ahead and checked out the lore. I think that was pretty cool. But yeah, the whole Under Surveillance event, again, I want this to be a good thing, like a good event slash variator thing, because I like stealth, and I think the game should focus more on stealth more. Like, there's a lot of shit that you just get for free. Like, that's my opinion, but especially on higher difficulties, if you're getting under pressure, you should be forced to build stealth a bit more. Franco is a good example. Like, people hate Franco a lot, but he actually puts in a thing into the game where you actually just can't run around like a headless chicken and you actually have to pay attention to the environment. Like shit like that is good. So if they make a camera thing that is actually threatening, that would do wonders, especially if you get it in Escalation and you actually have to pay attention, which is pretty nice. Okay, speaking about all the other changes now. Now they added a new enemy, which is the pitcher. He was pretty pathetic on live when he came out, like in the original update. I even had like a tech going where you can like run into him and he throws molotovs to you and you can just bait. They have fixed that. They have actually fixed that and made him a lot stronger now. Like, he's also faster and everything. Generally speaking, they went ahead and make psychosurgery enemies faster, which is quite a change, especially on Kill the Snitch. But yeah, the picture in itself, good addition to the game. I think they should adjust his damage values on higher difficulty, and in my opinion, then he's good to go. In my opinion, like, he's a good boy, and people love him. I've seen a lot of people simping for him as well already. They also added some new loadout shit. They added like short circuit, which is a bit underwhelming. I wish the value was a little bit better. But if you use batteries, you also restore recooldown. Kinda cool. Evasive, which is like the new goat to push away pusher and hiding spot people, which is pretty good. And Bandage Expert, which I'm also quite a fan of. It's not holding a candle against Last Chance or Self-Revive, but Bandage Expert is really solid and really nice. Also, they added the Jammer Rig, which the Jammer Rig is actually peak. The Jammer Rig is probably one of the best loadout things that's ever happened, in my opinion. And I think in the opinion of a lot of people, it's like second best rig right behind Stun. But unlike Stun, which feels very overpowered, it doesn't feel overpowered at all, because you actually have to put in effort to make it work. It does a lot of different things, but you have to think about how to utilize these things, if that makes sense. You have your revives, which is insane. And you also have, I mean, corrupt enemies isn't that great, but you have like your rewire to rewire traps and turn them against enemies, which is pretty cute. And you can do a billion different things, like obviously unlocking doors, like the new padlock doors, the locked containers, but also fucking with like every single different door type. Like, for example, on Destroy the Evidence, like, Jammer is absolutely goated because you can just jam all the doors. Like, Jammer is an absolute W, and honestly, I know they haven't announced a new rig for Season 3 yet. Honestly, I don't want a new rig, because let them cook a little bit more with the new rig, because they already did so well with the Jammer, and I know Barricade hasn't really, you know, gotten the love as well. With Barricade, you can now barricade windows since the last update, which is a neat little addition. And they also made it for some reason that blind is like 1 second less deploy time, which is a change that doesn't make sense. Like, blind is always supposed to be used like in advance and not in enemy's face. So if they were to change blind, I would have done something different instead. But yeah, for the most part, like, Jammer is absolutely goated with all the loadout shit. Besides that, they also did 2 things that are really good. They changed stamina, so exhaustion and getting exhausted and whatever actually means something. Previously, before Season 2, stamina recovered like if you're exhausted, you recover like in half a second, and it was absolutely pathetic. Like, you might as well have not had stamina in the game, in my opinion. But they changed that, and now we actually have to wait. Like, exhaustion actually matters, so that was goated. And they also reworked Psychosis, that it's finally, we've been asking that ever since like early access, but it's finally a threat now. Previously, Psychosis was always more of a help because enemies just ignored you in Psychosis. So what a lot of people, like advanced players, would do, go into Psychosis on purpose to avoid like enemies and just tank the damage the Skinnerman does. But they did a bunch of changes now with Season 2 at the beginning that made Psychosis actually feel like a threat. Like something like Antitoxin and shit like that is worth a lot more running now. And Frank, like the gas man, is a lot more threatening now as well. But you have evasive maneuver as like your counter pick, so you can counterplay him if you want to. Now to the things that I think are a bit... Actually, there's like one thing that it was actually also really good, and that was the locked container change. It does indirectly nerf X-ray, which is kind of sad, but basically they made it so there's one liquid charger and one large battery in like toolbox containers, and one in a medical cabinet there's like a large medicine and a bandage in it. So if you see a locked container and you do not have the locked item variator or any specific things, you know what's in there. But also they made it so you can't get liquid chargers out of normal toolboxes. So in order to farm liquid chargers, you can like use your jammer or whatever, and you know where liquid chargers are. It makes it a lot more worth it to lockpick shit now, which previously wasn't that worth it necessarily. So that was a great change. Now to the things though. That I think is quite sad. That was probably the biggest L, and I've also made a video talking about the escalation changes and why I think they were undercooked. And I had a lot of people come to me and be like, oh my god, you're always crying, yada yada yada. No one gives two shits about the escalation change, like there is no problem with that. Let me elaborate. So, what they did. Previously, you had the old Ultra cap at 35. Where you had like old Ultra, increased threat 2, and boss variator. Then being stick together, countdown, etc, etc. That was actually very challenging, because the old Ultra had like shit like a bleeding, deadly prime asset, increased wicked cooldown, limited inventory 2, so you had to run backpack as well to have like 3 inventory slots, limited hiding spots 2, limited items to like everything limited, enraged enemies, big part. Like Ultra was a powerhouse of a variator, but at the same time it felt sort of fair. Like it was one of the, it was pretty oppressive, but if you're an endgame player who like really put his time into the game, it felt like a worthy endgame sort of variator in there. What they did is they completely got rid of that and instead made it so starting at 11 you have like the new Ultra, which is weaker than Psychosurgery, and they got rid of pretty much all the stakes and the difficulty in Escalation. They also went ahead, as a side note, in the Under Surveillance event update, and they also removed Stick Together from Escalation, which is also a fucking mistake. If the thought process was, oh, Stick Together stomps noobs, I would have simply put it, you can only get Stick Together starting at 20 plus. And that would have fixed the issue. I really hope they're gonna go ahead and revert a bunch of the stuff with Escalation. Like, Escalation is low-key the driving force of me playing and making content of this game. Like, one of the videos I recently posted on my main channel was like back in September when me, Sus, Crab, and Javi went for 100 with the old system, and that video took so long to make, but it turned out like an epic saga almost, like 2 hours of like tension and everything. You can not by any circumstance recreate this with this version of Escalation. And the thing is, a lot of people say, nah, it's fine, because why are you complaining? It doesn't affect me. That's right, casual players were never affected by the Ultra change, because again, old Ultra started pretty much at like 35 something. Like, you had a 15, a 20, a 25, a 30, and starting at 35 you had permanent Ultra, so you had it a little bit, but most casual players don't get past 20 anyway, so they wouldn't have even be affected by the old Ultra thing. But yeah, they completely removed that, and with that any tension. And I've enjoyed Escalation here and there, but it just doesn't hit the exact same as some of the old stuff, especially when you wanna go for like a very, very big run, like a 100 run, like we tried a while ago. I just really hope they change it. They have added some stuff to Escalation, which is pretty good and pretty cute. Like the more pusher variator, more pitcher variator, or like the level 1 variator. They actually made a variator where you literally have no upgrades whatsoever. If you get that, it's peak. But for example, today I was streaming and I actually got that. But then I also got Don't Make Noise, which if you don't know, Don't Make Noise is still this pathetic variator, which makes it so enemies can hear you better but are completely blind. So yeah, alone the fact that Don't Make Noise is still an Escalation and you are now guaranteed to get, not guaranteed, but you could get it at like 100. Like imagine going for 100 and the 100th trial has Don't Make Noise, which basically tells you, yeah, you get the 100th trial for free. Like that's as bad as it is. That's just as bad as it is. So yeah, I mean, that has pretty much been everything. I didn't talk about the cosmetics and shit because it's like subjective anyway, but yeah, that's pretty much like the recap, reminiscent of like season 2, which I hope I will do that for future seasons as well. I'm kind of sad that season 2 went like out like this. Like they did their best with what they could with like the data breach and whatnot. And I think like season 2 will be remembered as like the black sheep season. Potentially if like season 3 becomes a banger with like the new game mode, new enemy and whatnot. It will be remembered as black sheep, which is pretty sad because season 2 had a lot of shit going which was pretty good. Pitcher was a bit of a joke, now a bit of a menace, you know? The trials that they added, all of them in my opinion cool, but it's controversial, you know? They finally fixed like the stamina and the psychosis and whatnot, but people don't like that either. Like this season had so many changes that were really divisive. There was so much good in it, but at the same time it got like overshadowed, especially with like the content drought that was, you know, the flashback therapy. I hope the best for season 3. I will obviously be there. If you wanna follow me on that journey, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more of the content in the near future. I will probably still have one challenge maybe up before season 3 comes out. Like I'm still working on a challenge, so you can look forward to that. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much listening to my rambling, and yeah, have a great rest of your day and take care everyone. Bye bye.